Good morning and welcome to Mike Ferry TV. It is the week of October 24th, and we're doing a three-part series starting today. If you're a broker, owner, manager, make sure that you get all of your salespeople watching it this week, because we're going to be talking about how to get listings sold in this little bit different market than what we've had the last 2.5 years. I'm going to read part of this to you to start. And I want you to listen carefully, and probably I would suggest that you take the time to watch this particular segment 3 or 4 times this week. Take as many good notes as you can take, because the key to the business is first taking listings, but then as importantly, having them sell. So I wrote down, when a market changes, either goes flat or starts to decline, the challenge each of us faces is getting our listings sold and satisfying the needs of our sellers. As we all know, during the past 5 to 7 years, getting a listing sold really required nothing more than taking a listing. And then, of course, knowing there'd be multiple offers and multiple showings on a very, very quick basis. Nearly every listing that was taken between, say, June of 2020 and up till about 3 or 4, maybe 5 months ago, depending on the market, sold quickly. And it was really not much in terms of our skills to get a listing sold, as it was the fact that the demand was so high for listings. So this has almost 100% stopped throughout North America. So the challenge we face in a transitioning market, which we have now transitioned into, and while coaching a lot of great people and training a lot of people like yourself, is getting you to recognize the conditions of the market. So when you are presenting to a seller, you can get a positive response, and more importantly, help them understand what has to be done to get a listing sold. So I want you, if you have 1 or 2 listings, to identify, is there any of the points I'm going to give you today or next week or the week after that you should be using and applying those to your sellers. The seller's desire to sell is always the key to success, but the seller's understanding of the market is critically important, and who better to understand the market than you and I as professional salespeople. So I'm going to go through 10 points today. Listen carefully. Some of you will say, well, they don't apply to my listings. And the reason we have 30-some points on the next 3 segments is because not all of them do apply. But the odds are most of them do apply. So point number 1, and this is the blinding flash of the obvious. Price it right the day you take the listing. This means if you price it even several % over the CMA projected price, you probably should consider walking away and turning it down. And I understand fully, very few agents have the courage to do that. And the reason we don't have the courage to do it is we don't have enough presentations. Therefore, we don't have enough listings to walk away. Well, my suggestion has always been the same. Determine the fair market value. Try to be at least at fair market value, if not 3 to 5% below fair market value, because this has to become the list price. Now, a seller wants and thinks this market we have today is the market we had back in March of this year. And of course, those worlds are totally different. So what I want you to think about is helping the seller understand the market. I wrote down second, consider putting a price reduction form. Now, we actually have those forms available, meaning your office. We haven't seen them in a long time, in your pre-listing package. It will get the seller used to seeing a document that says price reduction on it. So when you come back in a conversation, it isn't a complete surprise, although they're never happy to have to listen to that conversation. Number 3, since buyers today have more choices, remember the condition of the property becomes critical to the sales process. Whether you critique the property on behalf of the seller or you get the seller to make some suggestions to themselves as to what needs to be done, we have to decide on which homes are going to sell first in the community. And the ones that sell first are those that are priced closer to fair market value, and in most cases in better condition. So we have to be, you have to be honest, you have to be upfront, you have to tell them the truth regarding condition. I wrote down fourth, during your listing presentation, consider reintroducing that price reduction form that was in the pre-listing package. Because, the challenge that we have is if we don't, again, and I stated this a minute ago, if we don't have a lot of presentations, it's very difficult to get our mind wrapped around the fact that we don't have to take a listing that is not going to sell. It hurts the ego, it hurts the reputation, it hurts the mindset of the individual agent like yourself. So consider asking them to sign a price reduction form if they're absolutely convinced they need this price and you're trying to get it at this price. Consider asking them to consider signing a price reduction form that is 30 days out from the day you take the listing. Consider it. They may sign it. It's going to help you long term. Number 5 is a tough one because this changes so quickly. You have to work and become an expert at market statistics and use them on every listing presentation. Now, 6 months ago, we would say once a month, establish the market statistics. Today, we're saying once a week, establish the market statistics because they are changing that fast in this transitioning, declining market. The better you keep the seller informed on the market, the stronger you look in the eyes of the seller, the more confidence they will have in you and what you're saying, and your chances for getting it priced right increase as the strength of your belief in the market stats increases. Number 6 on the list, and this is a no exception point, pre-qualify 100% of the sellers. Before you ever make a listing presentation, do it 100% of the time and ask 100% of the pre-qualifying questions. And I wrote in capital letters, there's no exceptions to this point. Now, the exception is you don't do it and you take it 10, 15, 20% over fair market value, which means you're probably up to 30% off on your price. What we're looking for in the pre-listing, pre-qualification process is their motivation. We're looking for how strong that motivation is. And if you're going on 1 or 2 presentations every 60 days, we're a little skeptical to press too hard because we need to be on a presentation and we need a listing. If you're going on 1 or 2 listing presentations a week, you understand that you don't want to waste your time on a seller whose price is here and motivation is here. So let's make sure we pre-qualify 100%. Number 7 is going to sound a little unusual. Consider using what we call the Mike Ferry Organization Plan of Action. In the Plan of Action, you can go to our website, you can look at the listing scripts, and you'll see one that says Plan of Action. And all it is a step-by-step process that we follow to get a listing sold. So I wrote for number 7, use the Plan of Action on every listing presentation. Once they sign the contract, whatever the price may be, call back the seller once a week, report to them exactly what you've worked on and what results you're getting from working on getting it sold. Because if you're doing your job and it's not selling, it has to be the price. So if there's 18 steps in the Plan of Action and you've done 9 of those steps over 2 weeks, and you're not getting any offers and showing, now you can show them these are the steps that I've taken. The problem has to be the price. Number 8, and this is something that you really have to consider. If your listing hasn't sold in, say, 14 to 15 to 30 days, make the following presentation to the seller. And this is assuming their motivation to sell is still strong. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, for us to be number 1 or number 2 in the market in terms of the competition that is for sale, we have to be at least 5% below our competitors. Will you drop your price an additional 5% so we can hold on to the number 1 or number 2 position in the market? Meaning agents working with buyers look at price, they look at terms, they look at condition, they look at location, and they pick what they think is the best. Let's make ours the best. in the eyes of the agents and the buyers. Number 9, when going back to work on price reductions, which is many times a painful experience. Because, see, if we're not strong at the start, it's hard to be strong 30 days later, because they're going to question the validity of your belief in getting their home sold. So when you go back 30 days later, 2 weeks later, whatever the time may be, ask the seller this question: do you understand what these market stats mean and how they affect the sale of your property? Do you understand? Because the market stats will have changed if it's 30 days later from the time you took the listing. And then number 10, last point for today, make sure that your listings are always either number 1 or number 2, at the worst case, the third best one for sale compared to the competition. And this takes a lot of research, it takes a lot of work, which is why so many agents don't work on listing property. Everything is going to sell. Everything always sells, and those that don't expire. And then other good trained agents come in and they make a presentation of that expired listing, showing the seller what should have been done and what needs to be done. And so many of our clients today are thriving on the listings taken by other people that were priced wrong and never sold. Because the number of expired listings today is back in a climbing process and getting much more back to what happened in the last big recession, 2009 to 2012. So we have some opportunities in front of us. We have some challenges in front of us. We have a lot of things to review after today, and we're going to continue this same thing next week with points 11 through 20 on getting your listing sold. Watch, review, take notes. Watch, review, take notes. See you next week.